Okay.
Hello, everybody. I can't do this.
Well, I'm going nuts.
Today we're going to do a short video on staining a flintlock gun stock. We're going to be using iron nitrate, which is commonly referred to as aquafortis. It's a solution that's produced by mixing nitric acid, water, and dissolving iron in the solution. It's a very traditional stain for curly maple and gives a very nice color and really very permanent and is really, in my opinion, the best choice for staining curly maple. So we actually sell a product here we refer to as iron nitrate or ferric nitrate, and I'm just going to demonstrate on a scrap stock the process I use to apply the stain and to heat it with the heat gun and then put some finish on top of that. The stock is, as I mentioned in some previous videos, the stock has been sanded to 220 grit and then been wet with just a damp rag and allowed to dry, and then that raises the grain, so any compressed wood fibers lift up when the water is applied, and then that's sanded off. You can do that process a couple times and it will allow you to have a smoother stock finish when it's all complete. So we'll get right to it. Take the solution, you can put it on a rag, and probably gloves is a good thing, but this isn't very acidic at all and it won't hurt you, so we're just going to avoid that step. Get a little bit on the paper towel. You can use a brush too, it's not a problem. We'll just get it on here and wipe it on the stock. A little more here. So a few notes on this is you don't want to put it in the inlets. Just put it in the areas that are seen. There's a couple reasons for that. Is traditionally inlets were never stained, so there's no good reason to do it. It's hard to heat. If you were to get the stain in the inlets, it's much harder to heat the inlets to blush the finish or to turn the finish. And when you heat it and blush it, it does remove some of the acidity. And if it's in the inlets, then it's much more prone to corroding or rusting or oxidizing your metal that fits in the inlets. So just don't put it in there, even though if you think you should, don't do it. So we'll just do a little bit more. Okay, so that's good enough for our demonstration here. So after applying the stain, get a little more here. I usually like to let it dry, although you don't have to let it dry, but I think you get a little better results if you let it dry. Maybe about a half hour, 20 minutes, something like that. So we'll call that good enough, and then we'll just wait a little bit of time here, and we'll come back and then we'll go on to the next step, which is heating the stock, and that changes the color from this sort of nasty grayish green color to a real nice kind of a red brown orangish color. So we'll be back here in a few minutes. Okay, about 20 minutes or half hour has passed, and the stock is more or less dry to the touch. You can see it kind of has a nasty greenish gray color, but that'll all change here real soon. So we have to heat the stock in order for a reaction to occur in the kind of orangish brown color to develop. So in order to heat the stock, the best way is to use a heat gun, a commercial heat gun. These are pretty cheap. You can buy them from Harbor Freight for not too much money. So I use it on the low setting, and I just kind of demonstrate how I go about it. And you can see the color change as it happens. So on this particular heat gun, I hold it maybe an inch or so from the stock and work an area and then kind of move it along. You can see the color change occurring. You can also kind of smell a little bit of the acidity being removed from the stock. It kind of vaporized to some degree. Now the only real concern is with this process is you want to heat it enough. If you don't heat it enough, it'll have this grayish green color will be left over. So you want to make sure you heat it enough. You don't want to heat it so much that it scorches and burns the stock. The corners and edges are the first area that will heat up and tend to scorch and burn. So you want to heat up enough, but not too much. It's really a pretty simple process. And if it scorches a little bit, you can sand that off and it won't be too noticeable anyway. And every piece of wood will finish a little bit different. So one thing about Aquafortis is it's a great stain, but it's not highly adjustable. So you're probably going to end up with a color. It may, and you can't really tailor the stain to a particular color you had in mind. It's not easily tailored. So you have to be a little bit flexible and that kind of be happy with whatever color it gives you, which is generally going to be nice. Now you may be thinking that it's not really showing the curl very much right now, and that's because no finish is applied to the stock. This is just a stain, just the product that will give you the color of the wood. And the curl will come out when we add our finish to the stock. Whoops, I'm close there. See a few rough areas in the stock. I didn't spend a lot of time in preparing the stock for the video, so I'd recommend on a finished gun take a little more care in sanding it and grazing the grain. I'm just trying to heat it about as much as I can without scorching the stock. Because the more you heat it, it'll usually give it a little bit richer color and tend to minimize any of that grayish, greenish color. See, I missed a spot there. I'll usually put at least 2 coats. And the second coat will give you a little richer, deeper color. And also, if you miss spots, then it'll fill in those spots that you've missed. And I seem to always at least miss some spots here and there when I'm using the iron nitrate or Aquafortis. A little bit on the toe here to do. And we'll probably, the second coat is applied just like the first coat, the same procedure, just go over the whole stock. we'll probably skip that because it's just more of the same. And after we get this all blushed or heated, we'll apply some oil and show you what it looks like. Now I'll mention also that you can apply this with some Scotch-Brite, which is just a sort of like a synthetic steel wool. I use the orange or the gray, and you can kind of burnish the stock as you're applying it. It seems to make a little smoother finish. I just used a rag, but I just sort of remembered that's often what I'll do is use the Scotch-Brite. Just dip the Scotch-Brite in some of the solution. Okay, so that's pretty good there. So I'm going to step aside and actually get a little bit of Scotch-Brite here. Piece somewhere. Nasty. Try. So I have some oil. This is tried and true oil finish, oil varnish, mixed with some turpentine. And the turpentine just thins it down, allows it to penetrate a little bit more. So I'm going to use it and this little piece of Scotch-Brite to kind of put some oil on. We'll see how it works out. The oil, I'm rubbing just a little bit. If I rub a little bit, it'll tend to bring out the curl a little bit more. As I mentioned, each piece of wood is going to stain a little different than every other. Some more so than others. So you can kind of see how the oil is really soaking in the wood, but it's a nice color, real traditional looking color. More. You can see the certain areas of the wood soak up the finish more than others, and those are end grain areas. So the curl that you see that's real dark and black, the stripes, those are end grain areas that soak up the finish a lot more, so soak up the stain as well. So I'll just keep putting this on until it really doesn't want to soak up any more, the first coat anyway. Let's keep on adding this oil. Now, there's lots of options when doing this type of work. One option is to get some finish on and then burnish the stock, which will help smooth it out and give it a little different appearance. So we may do that as well here. You can see the nice rich kind of reddish brown color that the Aqua Fortis gives, or the iron nitrate gives. It's a real nice color. So if we want to burnish it down, I would probably just wipe up a little bit of the oil. Get a paper towel here. And I used to have an antler that was polished down that I would use to burnish, but I've lost it. So I just started using a dowel. So just a little piece of ramrod works well. And it should be kind of sanded pretty smooth. I don't know if this is one that I used before or not, but a little chunk of ramrod is all it is. And in order to burnish, basically you're just rubbing this on the stock. It'll smooth out the grain and kind of smash the grain down a little bit. And it gives the wood just a little different appearance. It gives it a nice appearance, if you ask me. And with carving, I just go right over the carving. It doesn't really cause any problems. In these areas, you just kind of go like this a little bit. Okay. When you put a little bit of oil on it, you may be able to see through the camera how it kind of changes the look of it. Oops. I don't think I mentioned that it's generally best to remove most of the parts before staining. Things like a patch box I might leave in, or inlays I might leave in, but most of the parts it's best to remove. I even like to go right over the corners, kind of heavy when burnishing. It gives it just a little bit more of a handled look. And I push pretty hard. After burnishing, it'll soak up a lot less oil too, so your finishing process will go a little faster. There's an area that I didn't sand real well. I'm preparing the stock, so I'll just burnish it a little bit more to minimize. Okay, so let's put a little more oil on and then see what it looks like here. The one thing that can be done, the color can be adjusted slightly if you desire, by using dye stains, aniline dyes, after using the aquafortis. You can use just the stain directly over the aquafortis. Usually it's alcohol or water-based, or it can be mixed with the oil too. There's some aniline dyes that are soluble in the oil, and then you can adjust the color. The downside of aniline dyes is, well, there's several downsides. They're not highly color fast, so the color can fade in time and become washed out. They're certainly not as durable as the aquafortis, and oftentimes, though not always, depending on how they're used, they can have a different look. That when you're used to seeing the aquafortis, they can kind of stand out. So it's not always, but some people do really good work with the aniline dyes, but there are some issues with them. I use them often for tinting. If I want to change the color, I'll go back over it with I use trans tint quite a bit, as well as the Laurel Mountain Forge products, but usually trans tint. I'll add to the oil finish and I can adjust the color a little bit. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Has a nice shimmery look to it. Maybe move the camera around a little bit, get it from different angles, and you can kind of see the curl a little bit more. Keep on giving it some oil, and then once I've gotten tired of putting oil on the stock, I'll wipe it off and let it dry. You don't want any excess on the stock. You definitely want to wipe the finish off. Let it dry completely before applying subsequent coats. And subsequent coats need to be applied very thin as well. If the finish is laying on the stock, it'll take a long time to dry, and it will it'll look real nasty too. So if you don't want any finish around your carving or details, you can use a toothbrush or paintbrush to go around your carving to clean it up. So this would be ready to set aside and dry for maybe a couple days, maybe. Different products that you use for finishing dry faster or slower. The tried and true dries pretty slow. Sunlight really helps it to cure. Other finishes dry faster. The permalin that we sell dries much faster. And it can be used basically in the same manner that we use the tried and true finish. So that's really a summary of staining a gun stock using iron nitrate. And probably continue this series with maybe using bone black to selectively darken some areas of the stock, which will kind of add a little interest to the stock and simulate a little bit of wear and age. And then we'll continue with adding a little more finish, so you get the feel of what the wood looks like as it's finished more, and how we go about adding finish. So I think we'll wrap this video up now.